So I'm here with Dr. P, and I've purposely pronounced his name that way because it's quite a long name and I didn't want to make a mess of it. I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation, but to be honest with you, I have no idea where it's going to go. And this is going to be a free-floating conversation. But when I have somebody like this with the expertise that you have throughout your lifetime and bringing together the spiritual Eastern and Western science, I think it's going to make for a wonderful topic. So you're very welcome. And let's see where our conversation goes.
Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm sure I will enjoy, and your audience will enjoy.
That's always good.
Enjoy. Yeah.
That's always good. So you're just to give a little bit of your background. You're based in Michigan, and you originally came from India.
Correct. I am in Grand Blanc, Michigan, and I came to United States in 1980, and I was like 26 years old. And I have been here, and I went through different specialties, psychiatry, neurology, and then I wanted to become a subspecialist. So I did fellowship in muscle and nerve diseases, and I have been practicing in Flint, which is close to Grand Blanc, in Flint for since 1988. So 32 years I have been here, and I am affiliated with Michigan State University and Central Michigan University, and I have been teaching the medical students and medical residents, community doctors, communities with the. So I constantly give lectures in different different topics, including brain, like seizures, multiple sclerosis, strokes, headaches, and all that. At the same time, I also do a lot of humanitarian background related topics also, because my goal is always educate another person, because ignorance is the root cause of all the problems in the world. You name it to me, I will point to ignorance. Because if you compare ignorance with darkness, because let us say I throw you in a room, dark room, you have no idea what's there in that room, and something touches your foot. Immediately you scare yourself to death. Your heart rate goes up, you sweat, your pupils dilate, and you scream like out of your lungs, because you think it's a snake or whatever. But it's merely just a wind, or you touch something soft. On the other hand, not only that, let us say I put some diamonds on a table there. You don't even know that there are diamonds there in the dark room, because they are valuable millions of dollars. You have no clue. On the other hand, I turn the light switch on, everything is crystal clear to you. That's why from ancient times, they compared the ignorance to darkness. So if ignorance is compared to darkness, and ignorance is the root cause of all the problems in the world, what is the answer? Light for darkness. So for the ignorance, it's the knowledge. That's why, based on that understanding, that in my medical school, even from high school onwards, I always love to teach people. Even yesterday, I did 6 procedures. Every patient thanked me for 100 times, because I like to tell them something useful, they can use in their life. Like the guy I told you before we started this, the guy with the heart attack and the smoking. So how to stop smoking, not by medicines, this and that, So you give them simple things to do in life, then they appreciate that. So I always say, you give them fish, they eat for a day. You teach them how to fish, they eat for life. So if you and I, you are doing a great job with the breathing, because without breathing, nobody can close their nostrils, close their nose for more than a few seconds. They will be dead. Or if God tells you that, hey, you breathe on you have to breathe mechanically, you have to pay attention to your breathing, or you have to beat your chest for, heartbeats, we all will be dead as soon as we are born.
Yeah.
But they both are automatic. We don't appreciate that they are automatic, and they are the breathing giving you oxygen and letting out the carbon dioxide, and your heart pumping 70 to 74 times per minute. And until you die, it's pumping blood and giving nutrition and oxygen to your whole body, from your hair follicles on your scalp to your toenails.
Yes. This is an intelligence, though, that Western society is often overlooked. That we tend to see the head and the body as being separate to each other. And
Right.
when we're talking about the breath, I suppose we're thinking about the breath as being the bridge, the connection between the mind and the body. And as you say, there's a tremendous intelligence going on in the human body, but seldom do we give our body any attention unless there's some pain there. That's when people start bringing their attention there. I'm really curious about the bridge between Eastern and Western, and how growing up has helped you and how you've bridged that, because for me, they seem to be quite two distinct pillars.
Absolutely. What science does is, because I say something and you reproduce, it becomes a fact in science until somebody else comes and say, even Einstein theory, even Einstein said he did a blunder. He was working on an equation for 3 years with one step wrong. For 3 years, he wasted his life because of one step, until somebody pointed it to him, and then he said, oh my God. Then he came up with the theory of general relativity. But even then, he even said that science only, kind of explores what is there in the universe. That's all it does. But the difference is that in Eastern philosophy, you can say that they pay attention to the inner, yourself and the inner side of your body, because nobody pays attention to the mind in Western world. Everything is materialism. Whatever you see, that's it. You think that is fact. But in reality, as we know, even scientifically, what you see is not actually, may not be true, because it depends on how your brain interprets what you see. Because the seer and seen are not different, they are not separate. So if two people, let us say, witness the murder, they both have two different, stories. Mm-hmm. That's why you have lawyers shining in this world, making tons of, because that's the reason.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's Western world is like, everything is like me, myself, and I. And the more they pay attention to just the body, the more, and without paying attention to the mind. And so they get into so many problems, physically, mentally, emotionally. I think main thing is the lack of spirituality from the childhood. And there are no teachers in the school to say, like when I was a child and when you were a child, I remember, I'm sure that you also agree with me, that your teachers say, knock it off. That's not good. No, nowadays, nobody says that, because they're afraid they lose their job. The parents come after them. They make petitions. They go on TV and say that teacher should not be teaching students.
Yeah.
But in olden days, I am sure you are much younger than me, but when I was a student, he can slap your face and say, knock it off. You never do it again. I'm not saying that we had to beat children. That's not my idea.
Sure, I know, but I understand your point.
Just say, you need teachers to say right and wrong. This is not the way you live, because body is not permanent. Everybody know you born, you live, you die. There is nothing that is lives forever. That's why in any religion, you call the God eternal, means was there before in the past, is there now, and will be there in the future. But we were not in the past, we are in the present, but we won't be in the future. People do not think these kind of things when they get up or in their daily life. They do Facebook or Twitter or all kinds of these, what is Kardashian doing? And she's making millions of dollars for one Twitter. And then here you are spending your, in airports, everywhere, even at your own home, they keep doing this on their iPhone. I don't have phone. My children give me iPhone every time for my birthday or Father's Day. I never use them. I never use iPad. I tell them, now I'm semi-retired. I'm only in the office for 3 days and doing procedures. I don't take any emergency calls from the ER or stroke or anything like that. At that time only I use the phone so my office can contact me, doctors can contact me to talk to me. That is the only purpose I had for the phone. Imagine if I am doing that today, what what I'm trying to say is, it is okay to possess the materials. You should not be possessed by the material. That is the line nobody is teaching the current generation. It's okay. It's okay. Like we both are in, yes, there is a technology. That's why you can see me, I can see you. We both can talk to the world. We can share our thoughts, ideas. There is nothing wrong with that technology. How you are abusing it or using it is the problem. So that's why I told you in the beginning, ignorance is the root cause of all the problems in the world. The only solution is knowledge. You cannot get knowledge by just looking at Kardashian life or somebody else's life. The reason I mention her is that's the only name I hear on TV. So I don't
Sure.
know. Not that I watch her or
Yeah, but it's a good example though. Yeah,
everybody knows her.
Yeah, for sure. But when you talk about knowledge and when you talk about spirituality, I have my own kind of take on it, and probably somebody else has their own take on it, and we have all different interpretations. And oftentimes that I think that sometimes knowledge can be the issue, that I would be better off bringing a stillness to the mind and not flooding my mind with knowledge and with information, but actually creating a gap between thoughts. Because I think the human mind, we have so many thoughts going through the mind, going every moment, every day. Very few people are spending much time in present moment awareness. Most people have either their attention is stuck in the past, or they are anxious about getting to the future. And it seems that we are as human beings, we are in such there's such a void there in terms of drowning out the mental commentary, that the human mind is mad. Am I overstating that? And how would you connect it? Because I think, Doctor, this is going to be a lot different nowadays than it was 30 years ago. And I agree with your statement as well, that children are mollycoddled now, and they are protected from absolutely everything. But life doesn't protect us. With life, we have ups and downs, and that's a normal, and that's inherent in life. As you said, nothing lasts forever. If we teach our children that they are protected at all times, we are not giving them the skills to teach them when they go out into the real world. They are not able to deal with reality. And if something bad happens, and situations happen, they cannot cope with it, and they will have tremendous anxiety and depression and mental health problems as a result of it. So in our overprotection of children, we've actually done them a disservice. So that's the kind of, I'm gone off on a tangent now, but it's tying into your conversation. What would you say in terms of parents? And the second thing is in terms of bringing spirituality in.
Oh, absolutely. I have 4 children. I have twins, and one is a doctor, one is a lawyer. The youngest daughter is she just joined the medical school. My son is he finished his business school. But since childhood, the one thing parents have to do is give them the reality touch. Like you pointed a very important point in life. Life is full of ups and downs. I call it like a pendulum. Life is a pendulum. It goes back and forth. It never stops in the middle. And the mind is also same thing. Mind is, the definition of mind is flow of thoughts like a river, water flow in a river. It never stops. Even when you are dreaming, when you are sleeping, you are dreaming. The brain is working. Only time your brain doesn't have any thoughts is when you are dead. That's it. Brain dead. So what I tell everybody, not only my children, my patients and everybody, at least few minutes in a day, think of reality. What is real? You know, I don't want to call world is an illusion or a delusion. It's not. Why they call world is illusion? Because the world you see, you think you know, is not really the world. World in Sanskrit is Jagat. Jagat. Jagat means that which moves. So like you said, yesterday what we had, today we don't have it. Tomorrow we don't know how it will be. As you know that, what is that, Kung Fu Panda movie, that turtle, the old turtle says, yesterday was a history, right? Tomorrow will be a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why it's called present. So
Excellent.
to answer your question, so mind is a flow of thoughts. You can never stop the thoughts. We all get, while we both are talking, our brains are working. You know, they always have thoughts, no matter of what. There will be good thoughts, bad thoughts, worse thoughts, neutral thoughts, negative thoughts, positive thoughts. That is what mind does. That's its function. That's one thing everybody has to understand. Mind is a flow of thoughts. That itself takes half of your burden about your stress and anxiety. Number two, there is a role. You know, I'm sure that you know some Hindus or Indians you come across. They worship Om Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. What it means is why they say 3 times, why 3 has such a significance. First piece is individual, means you and your family. Second piece is your community, which extends to your state and country. Third piece is world peace. It has a domino effect. Let us say you live in a multi-million-dollar mansion and you are surrounded by full of poor people begging, or huts or whatever. How can you enjoy your life? Or there is terrorism going on, or extremism going on, but even though you have peace, indirectly they have effect on you or your children, and you lost your peace. Because peaceful mind is non-conflicting mind. So non-conflict conflict means what? Division, duality, right? Differences. Triple D. There is nothing beyond that. That's conflict. If you can resolve that conflict, you have a peaceful mind. So if you tell your children from childhood onwards, don't expect the teachers to teach them. Mother is the first teacher. That's why they learn mom and dad. Mother is the one tells the newborn baby, or when baby has a little bit, even from day number 1 onwards, here is your daddy, here is your daddy. So that is your belief. You don't know. Because your mom said that's your dad. But one thing you know for sure, that's your mom. She gave birth to you. You see that?
Yeah.
So that is the reality. That mom, you know for sure, mom is your mom. But father, you go by faith and believe that your mom didn't lie to you. But as you know, we don't have to go to the extremes where they lie, and that's a different story. And this guy thinks that this girl thinks until 20 that this is her father, but he's only step.
Yeah.
That goes along. That's a different story. So childhood parents, at least, see, the Western, you asked me the Eastern and Western. Yes, you don't have to abuse your children. You don't have to discipline them with physical violence and all that stuff. But there is nothing wrong telling the children from the childhood onwards what is right, what is wrong, and how that will affect them in the future. There is nothing wrong with it. They are not using any physical violence there. But the problem comes when you want to treat your children like friends, buddies. I want my daughter love me or my son love me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let me give more gifts.
Yeah.
So it is like this. If you love steak or shrimp, whatever, lobster. So you eat one, you feel good, excellent, you feel euphoric. But I put one more. With effort, you finish that. I put third one. You beg me, say, please don't give me any more. I'm really
It's called the law of diminishing returns.
Right? And then you give the fourth one, you vomit. So same thing with material indulgence to children. You should not do that. You don't buy their love with materials. It is okay to say, I cannot afford it. They say in India, olden days when I was growing up, if you have a small cot and you are 6 foot, you can't leave your feet off the bed. So what you do? You cuddle and you bend and you adjust yourself to sleep. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Same way, nowadays what's happening is they use the plastic card, they buy gifts for them. So they not only they lost the value of money and what is the, the positive values of earning and all that stuff. In olden days, I'm sure that even in Western world, they used to tell them, hey, do the lawn, I'll give you $5, or go to next door and ask them if they need to, if that old lady needs plowing of her driveway, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you see any kids doing that nowadays? Nope.
No.
Hardly
it's
you ever
changed.
see. At least in America, you don't see that anymore.
Well, it's the same, I think, in Europe as well.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
totally.
to answer your question, very first guru means teacher is the parents. You should not be afraid to teach children what is the reality, what are the consequences. But they are afraid. They want to treat them like friends. They never even address, even if they smell alcohol and say, hey, are you drinking? They are afraid to even ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is the real, you have to, because you want them to learn, like just like when they were babies, you tell them don't touch the fire, it burns your hand. That's why babies don't touch, because you say, oh, it burns, don't go there.
Yeah.
Why don't you do the same thing when they are 10, 20, 10, 15, whatever? That's the first answer for your thing. Next, second thing is, the teachers also nowadays, they used to teach and say, hey, you are suspended, you go home, or you stay in the corner of the room, right? There is no longer those things anymore. Even teachers are afraid they'll be fired or whatever, unnecessary lawsuits and all that stuff. But guru means who removes the darkness, means teacher. Guru in Sanskrit means who removes the darkness. Darkness means ignorance. Teacher is the one tells you 2 + 2 is 4. So the ignorance is removed and you gain the knowledge there. Same way, I think they should go back to the, I'm not saying that you had to go to the, you had to go back to the whatever you want to say, Bronze Age, this age, that age. No, that's not what I mean. There is no age limit for positive values in society, how to live in society. Look at our America, right now they are removing all these statues and, right? They're occupying the police, auto zones and all that stuff. You never heard of, I'm here for 40 years. But do I stop talking about it? No. I talk to my wife, my son is there listening. And when my daughters come from home, when they come home, I openly discuss with them. Sometimes it looks like they may not listening to you. My grandson is 3-year-old. I taught him Om, how to say Om. In the childhood, in that age, I tell him, I'll give you a candy if you say Om to me. Just for candy, he sits with me until I am done with my half-an-hour worship. And he listens everything. Why do I do that? Because when my father was, when I was small kid, when he was chanting the Sanskrit mantras loud, I didn't read the book. I listened and I got them. So he can say, now he's 3 and he can say Om Namah Shivaya. He can say that. Why I'm saying that to you? What is wrong telling the kids? You know for sure that if you read science, if you read astronomy, if you read quantum physics, microcosm, macrocosm, theory of relativity, I read all of them. I have a huge library, 300 books. I read every one of them. Not just spiritual, not just neurology. I read everything. Why? There is nothing wrong knowing something which you don't know. There is nothing wrong with it. Brain doesn't say I'm tired or fatigued. You don't mind watching Netflix for 10 hours, catching up with all the episodes. Why can't you read for 10 minutes? So my point is, for the children, you have to let whatever it is good thing. Hey, say this, I'll give you a candy, tiny M&M. Whereas when they are 2 years old, they just for the candy, they do that. Now my children are doctors and lawyers and they text me or whatever, they talk to me. Father's Day, they were texting me saying that you taught us all these positive things. They're helping us in life now. See?
Yeah.
They still call me if they want to. They have a job offer or something. My lawyer, she works for a big health system. She's the director, and she says, "Dad, I am getting these offers. I want to talk to you."
Mm-hmm.
Even though she's in North Carolina, she still calls me. Why? They trust your opinion, because I tell them all the time, there is nobody gives you better advice than your parents. They are the only your well-wishers. No parents want, even a murderer doesn't want his child to be hurt.
Yeah, of course. So
am I making sense to you?
Yeah, total. And I'm just, in my head now, it's going through is what's going to happen in 10 years time? Because I totally get it. And I've seen individuals and youngsters growing up with video games and immersed, and I've seen them over 15, 20 years. I'm nearly 50. And say, for instance, for 20 years, I've watched some individuals and over playing video games since maybe 15 or 16 years of age. And when many of these individuals, because of the amount of time they've spent looking into video games, they have really not developed their capabilities of surviving in life, in achieving. And I'm not saying that life is all about achieving, it's not, but it's about achieving a happiness. And I certainly think it's about exploring your capabilities, your skills, that we have been endowed with something, that we all have something that's innately unique to each of us. And some people are lucky enough that they can apply their skills in life and it can provide them with a livelihood. But Facebook, Instagram, overuse of technology, that is really taking so much time from these individuals that where is it all going to end up? And will it translate into really significant mental health issues in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
We already have mental health issues with children, teenagers. If you look at the vandalism and looting and violence you see on streets in the United States right now, and you can say, if you look at all those people, you realize that you can say that really, are they really educated? If you say they have education, I don't think they have the right education. So the mental health is already affected. Idleman's brain is the devil's workshop. So what they are teaching in the colleges, like how to tie your tie, or how to put silverware next to your plate. Who cares? These are the ones who are just to get grades. Kids are taking those classes and wasting not only the money and time. When they come out, they have nothing to. So when they have nothing to look forward, violence is the result, or looting, whatever. So I think in next 10, 20 years, is it going to get better? No, absolutely not. It's going to get worse. Why? Because since high school or even middle school, I always participated in the debates. I was the school president, elected unanimously by the teachers, not by the students. And I always participate in these debates, is a knife sharp or, pen or stuff like that, pen sharp or something like that. But since childhood, I always argued that politicians, lawyers, religious leaders, insurance and drug companies, these are the worst enemies to the humanity. And nobody disproved me in my debates that you are wrong. As of yesterday, I told my patients also that. Why I am saying that to you? Because politicians, they are addicted to the power, they are addicted to the prestige, they are addicted to the perks. Because this guy has nothing before he became a senator or a congressman. All of a sudden, he is worth, like Obama is worth millions of dollars. Netflix gave him $60 million, $69 million for what? How did you get Nobel Prize? What did you do peace to the world? Nothing. Look at the Palestinian, look at Israel, look at everywhere, Iran. My point is, as long as these politicians have the power and run the countries, people are not going, they are going to be brainwashed. Literally, this is brainwash. Free college, free this, free that. Nobody teaches them, neither parents or teachers. There is nothing so-called free in life. Even if I give you food and I put it in your mouth, you still have to chew and swallow to get your hunger, quest your hunger. Isn't it not?
For sure.
Food is free, I put it in your mouth. Still you have to chew, don't you? Same thing with, how can it be free? There is no such thing as free. So they are not realizing that they are ruining the country or the world with this globalism and all that stuff. So my point is, as long as you don't, you don't put these seeds in children's minds about the positive values and the reality of life, this, depending on the technology. As you know, now we have in psychiatry, there is another syndrome for the texting. Now they added that into texting addictive syndrome. See, it became a disease now. In the beginning, it's okay. Like there is an old saying in India. I mean, the reason why I'm saying, when I give lectures, I give so many metaphors and examples, because brain understands much better with examples and life lessons than just lectures. When I was a small kid, this was told by my mother. Let us say you are a small kid and you went and pulled some, spinach from next door neighbor's garden and gave it to your mom. And your mom didn't even ask you, you are a child and you don't have money, I didn't give you money, how did you get the spinach? Whatever, coconut, whatever, just a
yeah, example. Of course, yeah, as an example.
She said, she praised him and she cooked that spinach with dal and gave him. Then he went on moving on to bigger stuff.
Yeah, of course.
She never asked him the question. So one day he was in jail. And mommy goes there and cries, and then he slaps his mother. And he says to her, you never questioned me how I got this. If you slapped me and gave me the sense first time when I stole, stealing is wrong, I wouldn't be in jail today. Make sense?
Yeah, totally.
You don't need programs, social programs, or you don't need this, that. We need this, billions of millions of dollars for these programs. More than half of it is goes to the politicians' pockets. And why they become so rich after they get out of Senate and Congress? Because they become lobbyists. And the companies, corporates are making billions of dollars, but at the expense of the public. So if somebody says in the first time itself, this is stealing, this is wrong. So my answer to you is, once again, going back to ignorance and knowledge, the parents, and the other thing is 70% of the families are dysfunctional. I'm not talking about Europe. I don't know the statistics in Europe. I can only talk about America because I'm here for 40 years. 60 to 70% families are dysfunctional. Children don't have a father. Mother doesn't work or works, whatever it is, they have 10 children, whatever it is. Where are the values? But if you take the same family grandmothers, even when they were oppressed in 1950s, even if they had 8, 9 children, they all became productive, GM worker or something they did.
Yeah.
Why? Even if there is a grandparent, great grandmother in the house, kids learn something because at least she slaps them. I'm not saying beating is the answer. No, that's not my point. Point is just to tell them what is right, what is wrong from day number one.
But I wonder, how has it changed from one generation to another?
I think material intelligence, number one. Number two, the laziness. And not able, now once you have these programs and this and that, some of my patients tell me that I think I get more money with Medicaid than working in McDonald's flipping burgers. When you have that kind of incentives, where do you have enthusiasm or?
Yeah, of course, it's a poverty trap.
So who did that? Politicians. Why did they do that? To gain the power, to keep their power. It's addiction for them too.
Yeah.
They are most disease stricken. See, human beings are born with one disease, or you can say 2 diseases. There's no exception. We are all born with disease, hunger and thirst. You feel hunger. No, even if I am say I am Swamiji and I know everything and I know Brahman, I know this and still I am in this body. I feel hunger and thirst, right? So those two diseases nobody can get rid of until they are dead. Because the reason why you are thirsty, because your 70% of your body is water. That's why you need water. And you came from the 5 elements of the gross elements of the nature universe. So I think, as no matter how much technology you tell me, oh, we send man to moon, we are going to send man to Mars, and we are going to live there. No matter where you live, even if you live in heaven, if you don't change your characters and you change your attitude, morality, even in heaven they kick you down and say go to hell because your characters are horrible. Am I right?
Yeah.
So answer is not programs, not this, not that. The reason why I can say with confidence is because I'm the brain doctor. What I'm saying is I have handle on the brain, not only how it works, what is the difference between mind, what is the difference between mind and intellect, what is the difference between mind, intellect, and discrimination, this, like that. There are so many functions brain has, not just one. How it is keeping you conscious, what is the universal consciousness, how the nerve cells, when let us take your breathing, for example. Let us talk about your breathing. I may not be the neurologist with subspecialty in sleep apnea, but I diagnose sleep apnea and I send patients for CPAP and all that stuff. But one thing I want to touch your specialty is that once you make the breathing conscious, mindful, you can get rid of a lot of your body ailments, mentally, physically, emotionally, stress and everything. That is not a belief, that is not a faith. Like religion is a faith. If I ask you, oh, you say, Dr. P, I am so religious and this. One question I'll ask you, do you believe in heaven? Of course I believe in heaven, I go to heaven. One question, logical, reasonable question is, did you see anybody who went to heaven and came back and said, heaven looks like this? Nope. Did anybody go to hell and saw the hell and say this? And they say, oh, I'm a hardcore Christian, Catholic. Okay, I will ask you one question. How much really Jesus taught? Very little. Other than his Mount Sermon, everything he wrote with his index finger on the sand, and he didn't talk a lot. And one thing he taught, nobody preaches or practices in Christianity is, heaven is on earth. You make yourself your hell or heaven. What it means is, as a neurologist, heaven and hell are in your brain, in your mind. Your mind is your friend. Then you have everything heaven. How does it come? Because if your mind, you make friendship with your mind, if you have negative thoughts and say, hey, okay, it's like watching a movie. So let the thoughts go by, pass by. You are a witness. You just witness them. Don't react to them. Because there is no way you can stop the thoughts. But with breathing, what you are doing at that time, for example, inhalation and holding, breath holding and exhalation, 2, 4, 3, or whatever ratio you want to do, and how long you want to do. Oh, I can hold my breath for 2 minutes. Good for you. But the point is, make it conscious and breathe. Why you are doing that? Because that time is yours without any other thoughts in your mind, because you are focusing on the breathing. Not only that, by doing that, you are getting more oxygen to your brain. And even Patanjali, the Yoga Shastra Pandit, there are actually 2 Patanjalis, one 7,000-8,000 years ago. The other one we know is the one 300 BCE. Yoga, he is the one, put everything in order, the Yoga Shastra. So this Patanjali even says, exhalation, if you prolong your exhalation, you will have a clean mind. What does it mean? He doesn't make sense. He is nutcake. Scientifically also, when you are exhaling, what are you exhaling? Carbon dioxide. You are letting your so in layman term, you are letting your toxins out. And we are taking in inspiration, you are taking oxygen in, which is good for your brain. The more oxygen, the better function.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you not only you are treating sleep apnea and asthma and all those lung diseases, your breathing techniques help. So healthy brain, healthy thoughts. If you stuff your brain with whatever these marijuana and cocaine and all those drugs, LSD, HSD, whatever those drugs are, you are burning your brain like omelette on the pan, hot pan, egg on the hot pan, hot pan. Not that many nerve cells left. You don't have enough capacity to think straight.
Yeah.
So physically, scientifically, Mayo Clinic proved this. Mayo Clinic said, if you practice yoga and meditation and pranayama, you can get rid of your stress, anxiety, lower your blood pressure, cardiovascular diseases, lifespan increases, immunity increases. You can fight resistance to cold. Mayo Clinic articles, I have them.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It's very true as well what you say about the exhalation, because during rest, there is a nerve it's the vagus nerve wandering throughout the body, and 80% of the communication from the vagus nerve is from the body back to the brain. And the breath itself, during inspiration, the vagus nerve steps back, so it's more sympathetically driven. And on the exhalation, it's primarily activated. It's a parasympathetic response. So when we have a prolonged relaxed exhalation, we are activating the body's relaxation response. And the other aspect with this is that you spoke about earlier on, and there is a paper looking at the effects of mantras, including and also the rosary from the Catholic religion, that when it's spoken, and by the way, the Catholic religion, the rosary came from Tibet. It's originated from the Eastern world, even though that's not necessarily, known in Ireland, for example. But when you practice a meditation like that, it reduces the cadence or the respiratory rate down to about 6 breaths per minute. And this is the optimal rate for in stimulating the vagus nerve, but also increasing the sensitivity of baroreceptors, which are pressure receptors in the major blood vessels. And both of these feed into heart rate variability, which is an indicator of the functioning of vagal tone, or how well your autonomic nervous system is operating. So you're right in saying the power of the breath is amazing. Now, I know there's a common belief about oxygen being primarily good and carbon dioxide being bad, but we also need to consider that there's a balance between the two in terms of when we take oxygen into the lungs, and oxygen is carried by hemoglobin within the red blood cells, that one of the catalysts for the release of oxygen from the red blood cells is carbon dioxide. So people who are overly anxious or breathing too much air to cause a lowering of carbon dioxide, it can actually cause their blood vessels to constrict, and it can reduce oxygen delivery throughout the body. So I was kind of that child growing up with chronic mouth breathing. I had sleep apnea, but it was undiagnosed. I was told in universities that I was snoring and then I would stop breathing. The students thought I was going to die. And of course, 20 years ago, nobody really knew much about sleep apnea, even though it's been around a long, long time. Charles Dickens first wrote about it back in the Pickwickian papers, or the Pickwick papers. And Dr. Christian Guilleminault came up with the phrase. But I think there's something really integral about the breath and the merging of breathing with Western medicine. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to happen in my lifetime. But I think that there's some change happening with obstructive sleep apnea, and the recognition that sleep apnea now is not just about anatomical issues, that there are 3 phenotypes. And the breath plays a role with that in terms of nasal breathing, correct tongue resting posture to help open up the airway, the link between the nose and the diaphragm breathing muscle, with greater amplitude of the diaphragm causing a stiffening of the throat, so there's less likely that the airway collapses. Nitric oxide as an aerocrine messenger from the nose to the throat to the lungs. And, there's so much going on there that I feel that breathing is going to start moving into Western medicine. because I think doctors will have to look at it sooner than later. Do you think anything, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it might happen
No,
someday?
no. Actually, I think you touched the medicine. I avoided the medical aspect of vagus nerve and all that because I don't know your listeners. So I always like to make it very simple for them
Sure.
to understand. But to answer your question, believe it or not, I should say since I was a fellow, the sleep apnea, sleep labs have increased tremendously in the United States, number one. The awareness is tremendous. Even they diagnosed my wife with sleep apnea 2 years ago. She wears the sleep apnea machine now. I think there are more sleep labs now, and even primary care doctors are doing that much more frequently than before. Number one. Number two, to answer, the other thing I want to touch is that even though sleep apnea, all the things you talked about, we still make sure that there is no physical ailment like enlarged adenoids in the nose or enlarged tonsils in the mouth. Our elderly patient had a stroke in the brainstem causing the sleep apnea. Our young patient had a multiple sclerosis, or Parkinson's in old patient causing these. So we make sure that there are no treatable causes causing like a structural problem causing the sleep apnea. We do the workup before we do all the other things what you mentioned about. The other thing is like you talked about the oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. What I tell my patients and my students and my residents, even my daughter just 2 days ago, she's doing internal medicine residency in Indiana University, my twin. And I was telling her, remember in medicine, in life, too much is nonsense. What I mean is all these oxygen therapies, all these fancy movie stars, Hollywood, they have these oxygen chambers and all that.
Yeah.
Actually, if you get too much oxygen, also you get migraine headaches, and it's not good for your brain either. Too much, if you lose too much CO2, it can cause respiratory problems also. As you know, we have what we call acidosis and alkalosis. Probably you heard of those.
Yeah.
So I didn't touch those medical terms, but what I'm saying is, for people who don't have the medical background, for your listeners, too much is nonsense. Keep everything moderation is the key. Because you like steak, you eat every day lobster, which is full of fat and potassium. Either you will be fat, you will be over obese, or you die with high potassium in the blood. So point is, everything keep it in moderation. But to answer your question, we have more awareness about sleep apnea now. And compared to 20 years ago, we have more sleep clinics. Even in Flint, we have more clinics. Let us say when I was referring patients for a CPAP and all those things, there is only one, you had to go to the hospital. But now you have outside clinics you can send them to. There are so many. What I mean, but at the same time, you have to realize there is financial incentive too for doctors and everybody else. That is always there without paying.
Of course.
Of course, you know that. So, but even compared to everything else, breathing is very important. And I think you are doing tremendous service, wonderful service to the humanity in your specialty, because teaching them how to breathe properly after you exclude all the other adenoids and all those things, the breathing techniques. And also indirectly, or even you can say directly, by doing that consciously, breathing, whether you do ratio, if you are an expert, probably you can do 2 minutes. I don't know. I can't. But I do everyday pranayama. Like, I did the worship already in the morning. I got up at 5:50 and took shower. And I did my worship to the God. Basically thanking the God for letting me live one more day.
Yeah.
So I can service him for 20 minutes. That's what this is mean. The other thing is this Bottu, you know that Bindi, you probably heard of it. You have seen some Indians at least in Europe. This is the third eye, brow. This is called BROW, brow, in between eyebrows. If you look at the brain, if you cut the skull and look at the brain, the forebrain sits here. And what is important for your whole personality and everything, thoughts, forebrain. So instead, I can't put my thumb all the time in between my eyebrows. People may think it in negatively that I'm offending them. So by putting some pressure with some kind of dot, basically you are stimulating or evoking or invoking that area. So it will improve your mind capacity, clarity, intuitiveness.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is the reason why even though I am 66 years old, even though I am a doctor, some patients know that why I do. Some patients say you have something on your forehead.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, see, you noticed it. I tell them, you noticed it. Why? Because I'm just reminding you that there is God in every human being. Divine is in every human being, in every self. There is no divine for you separate and for me separate.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the whole universe, which is infinite, which is nothing but consciousness, how do we know? Scientists told you that the vibratory theory and the boson, it vibrates. Vibration causes sound. Sound vibration is Om. And the universe, the whole universe, if it is consciousness, what are you? You are part of universe, because Earth is a speck in the universe, in the big
Mm-hmm.
scheme of universe, not even a speck. Even infinite, Earth is not even a speck. So if you remember that every day, it keeps you humble. It keeps you on it keeps you on the ground. Your feet will be on the ground. You don't feel high mighty. Oh, I am superior. I am this, I am that. Then you say, I may be different, but I am not different in the self, in the divine nature of every self, every being, any animate, inanimate, animal, plant, whatever. Life is life. You understand?
Yeah,
So
totally.
this is what you want to teach children or adults, it doesn't matter. Once that knowledge is there, less likely you go and act out and kill somebody or destroy somebody's property or loot somebody. You don't. Your conscience doesn't permit, even if you want to do it.
Yeah. And I think this is the essence of all religions.
Yeah.
In terms of, you expressed gratitude for what you have.
Right.
When one is practicing a mantra or saying a prayer or focusing on the breath, it brings a calmness to the mind and body. One is less likely to be aggressive. One is less likely to require stimulants to drown out the mental commentary. Because in terms of unconsciousness of the mind, from the point of being that when the mind is very agitated, when the mind is very stressed, when the mind is very angry, human beings were more likely to make mistakes, were more likely not to consider other people, were more likely to be selfish, were more likely to consume in activities which we shouldn't be doing. So in essence, all of the world's religions brought something to the table, but sometimes I think all of that information has been lost. And it hasn't been that the very foundation for humanity, there was some brilliant and useful guidance there, but it wasn't necessarily transmitted through the telephone wire across the generations, that the message of spirituality has got lost. And earlier on, you spoke about, for example, we often hear, be still and know that I am God. And, we're talking here about stillness of the mind, where there's a feeling of peace over the individual. Or you also spoke about heaven on earth. And that's very true. And I think that may have been misinterpreted in the Catholic religion, that it's not about heaven when we die. It's about heaven while we're living. But if we're in a constant state of agitation and greed and want and selfishness, we are living in hell. We are making our own mind a hell. And we are not just making our own mind a hell. We are not just polluting our own mind, but we are polluting the mind of every person we come into contact. And, this conversation is kind of like a lot of this information I would have been kind of reading over the last 20 years. I think it's tremendous. And I think there is a void in the current present day, that people don't have religion, that and that's fine as well. But they need to fill the void. But they filled the void by looking into their mobile phone. And as you said, the conversation that we were having earlier on, everybody is surrendering all of their attention outwards, and seldom do we bring our attention inwards. So just from your own perspective, doctor, do you bring your attention, if you're working with a patient, do you bring your attention inwards into the inner body? Do you do it throughout the day? Do you think it's something that might be useful for people to do? Or how do you deal with stress in your everyday life?
Yeah, I'm seeing patients since 76, 44 years. I think one thing I noticed is that first thing is I love being a doctor, helping patients, because the moment I see a patient, I get this excitement that I can help another person. That's number one. Number two, I don't feel stressed out because my whole idea is when yesterday I did six procedures. Always my thinking is, how can I help this patient? To my best ability, how can I make a correct diagnosis so he can be helped? And while I'm doing the procedure, I talk to the patient. I tell them I'm going to distract your brain. If you like religion, we talk religion. If you like politics, we talk politics. If you want science, I talk science. So that, like how we both are talking, we touch on different things.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I had a patient with molestation since childhood by many uncles and
Sure.
And even she was beaten up by her ex-husband, and now she is married to a second guy for 20 some years, and she is I actually talked to her as a psychiatrist, praised her mental capacity, stability, and how she became productive, and she has 2 children now and all that. And she felt better after talking to me. She's, all these years, she's 40 something, right? And I gave her the reality touch. They are sick people. It's a disease. Even to think of that with a child, they are sick people. So it's not, but my mom always accused me until she died, last year. And then she felt sorry, blah. I said to her, don't worry about that, about your mother, because she herself, what happened to her probably. That's why she projected on you. That's her therapy. So when I did all these things, it helped her. So do I feel stress with my patients? No.
Sure?
I mean, I'm not trying to boast with you. In my 33 years in Flint is one of the highest places for malpractice lawsuits. It's like a red zone in this country. Even though I'm practicing for 32 years, I may have gotten some letters of intent because I'm also part of the specialist. 100 doctors are involved in the case and my name is there. They drop it off later. But otherwise, so far, I don't have any loss.
Touch wood.
And yeah. I tell the patients that. I tell my students that. I said, it's not my greatness. You ask me why I don't. Doctors, yesterday one patient was that patient who had a heart attack and smokes. He was telling me his doctor died with heart attack. And the new doctor who took over, he doesn't even look at his face, listen to him for 1 minute, he gives him out. He dropped him. He goes to another lady doctor and he's happy. And he was telling me that, you spent half an hour with me and I'm still talking to you and I poured all my life to you. You listened. You didn't get upset. You didn't get angry. I said, no, I don't. Because nobody else there for you to listen to you, including your wife and children. They don't have time for that. I'm doing the procedure. You can talk. I listen. I have nothing, your life. Everybody has a different life. Even if you are a billionaire, there's no guarantee that your children will have the same life as you did. Even if, I give each one 2 billion. So what? In 10 years, they may lose everything. What is the guarantee? But you worked all your life to make that money. And at the same time, you never enjoyed a single minute. You're always on the phone or something, making money. That's why when I hit 60, I decided, actually in 2012, I decided I will go part-time. Just do 3 half days in the office, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, relax, and spend more time in writing books. I wanted to write on mantras because while doing your breathing technique, you can do mantra. While doing meditation, you need mantra. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
That has a tremendous effect on the body, psychologically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatnot. That's why I decided to write this book for everybody. And instead of putting mumbo jumbo, I wrote that how I grew up and why I became successful as a neurologist, finance, everything. I'm okay. I'm not Bill Gates, but I'm fine. Yes, before in our conversation, you touched happiness. Remember the Christian religion talking about. I just want to add one more thing there, that we should not shoot for happiness. We should shoot for contentment. It's big difference. How I tell you, a simple example. You want BMW SUV for your family, X7 or X6, and you work hard and you bought it. You are happy. On the other hand, you couldn't have X6, somebody else has it, and you cry all the time that you didn't have it. Cry about it. And your life is miserable, even though you have a nice Mercedes or whatever other cars you have, but you always want X6. So even though you have a nice car or a car which is taking you from point A to point B, you don't thank that car. You want X6, which you don't have. That is where the whole misery, depression, anxiety, all these troubles come because of that. So there is a big difference between happiness and contentment. It is okay to possess materials. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I live in a nice, comfortable house. I have nice cars. Then he talks about spirituality. How come he has these? If I don't have them, I'm okay. In India, I was okay. I never cried over anything.
Yeah.
I was still happy. I mean, content. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. There's a saying that the human being, we want what we don't have, and we don't want what we have.
Like how they say that the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So when I see my patients, do I feel stress? Heck no. And sometimes they don't even leave my office. Then my wife has to come because she's my office manager. She comes in and say, hey, he doesn't mind talking to you for hours, but another patient is waiting. I don't think we should make that patient unhappy. Then he says, okay, I am leaving. So every patient leaves that way from my office. So as a doctor, am I making money? Yes, I'm making better money than, maybe some other person, right? And I don't have any lawsuits that I had to worry about. Even I cut down my malpractice insurance and all that stuff. And I am content, right? Whatever, then the question comes, do you get angry? Of course I do. I'm a human being. I have adrenaline in my body too. Sympathetic system is there, autonomic system is there too. I get angry, but the difference is I may get angry and then I think of all these things. I say, wait a minute, I'm idiot. I'm reacting for nothing. Then I calm down instead of reacting. That's one. Second thing is, do you get ups and downs? Everybody does. Life is a pendulum for anybody. Even for Jesus, it was like that too. For Muhammad, for Islam, Muhammad had ups and downs too. So there is no such thing. That is the reality people are lacking. They watch Kardashians or some movie on Alice in Wonderland, something on movie. My wife, that is, I tell my children also, that is a scripted movie. There is a director and they say cut and they do the same scene 100 times until they get it perfect. So life is not that. So there is no such thing as, the director decides or the story decides whether happy ending or tragedy, whatever it is. But in your life tomorrow, you don't know. That's why it is a mystery. So make best use of it. And ups and downs, yes, I do react. But am I reacting like I used to 20 years ago? No. Am I reacting like I was in my 20s? No. Right? Am I more content and understanding stuff? But you can say it comes with age. But a lot of old people are unhappy too.
That's true. Absolutely.
They can be unhappy that they are dying. They are going to die.
Yeah.
But once you are born, death is inevitable.
Yeah.
So I tell my wife, I am 66 years old. Whatever God, has time for me, I do my best. When I'm gone, I'm gone. I'm not going to cry over it. Oh my God, I'm dying. No, because that's my time. I go
Yeah.
because it's only a body. That is the one you have to separate your body from yourself and watch your body and your mind as a witness. That is my key point to your listeners. Be a like a witness. How you are watching a movie on the screen or something. Be a witness and watch your body do whatever it has to do. It is hungry, let it. You have to quench the thirst. You have to fill your stomach, right? And you have to go to work and make money for your family. Blah blah blah. Those are duties, daily duties everybody has. Even animals have their own duties to feed the cubs. Even ants do that, flies do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if they do it, what's the big deal about you? Then why you are complaining? If an ant can do, right, protect its eggs, what is the big deal that you are taking care of your children? Why you are so anxious, nervous, and stressed out for what? Yeah, sometimes they are out of bound, right? You react and then calm down and tell them, don't do that next time, please. Don't do that. That's not a good thing. Blah, blah, blah. That's what we do to our grandson. Sometimes he gets hyper. Then grandma says, next time when she's laying down and relaxing with his iPad, then she slowly infuses that, you did this. Nanama was sad, so please don't do it next time. Okay, now,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that is what you do. I'm not saying, hey, don't do it. No, you don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So to answer all your questions before, how do we move forward? This is how anybody should do. And the best lesson is there is a reality to life. It is not scripted. It's not directed. You are the script writer. You are the one writing on your hard whatever you call it, soft hardware, whatever. And you are the director. Nobody else. And you are the witness. And you watch. I mean, you look in the mirror and say, oh my God, I got old. But if you realize every 7 years, body metamorphosizes. Body changes every 7 years. So if you look at the age of, let's say 49, you look different. You look at the 56. Oh my God, I look so old. Because you have to realize every 7 years, okay, my body changes. My whole thing changes. My vision gets, my glasses change and all that stuff. So if you go through that reality, yes, we all have ups and downs. We all have responsibilities. We all have duties. But thing is, do your duty. That's what I told yesterday my patients. Do your duty. If everybody does their duty in the world, you don't need nuclear weapons. You don't need all kinds of guns and all that stuff. You don't need borders. If everybody lives according to their duty, I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to do my best to my patient. And I can charge, but I don't want to squeeze money from the patient. That's what I am supposed to do. And learn everything. Is there anything new I can tell the patient to help them? If I do my duty, if you can do your own self and you want to be a politician and you want to change the world, you are grandiose and you are a delusional idiot. Change yourself. If you can't change yourself and you can't you can't make a difference in your family, how the heck you can change the country and the world? That's why that Om Shanti, 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 it's a domino effect. If you are upset and angry with your wife because you both had a fight, or you heard something about your child and you are upset, you take whatever those guns are, automatic guns, and go outside and shoot everybody. How the heck that is going to solve your problem? But this is the one, parents, teachers, actually gurus, everywhere you need these kind of teaching. Not that, okay, we all go to heaven. Then question comes, number one, if we are here forever, for earth is there, and at least humans are there for hundreds and thousands of years, not 6,000 years, hundreds and thousands of years. So all the people who died, how many people heaven can accommodate? Number two, with what form I go there? As a young person or old person? If I died at 90, do I be there a 90-year-old person or 20-year-old? If I say 20 year, you are delusional again. And then how long do I stay there? If you go to, if you have $10,000 and you say, Dr. P, I'm coming to America, I'm going to Hawaii, I'm going to spend this money. I blew the money with on the, I take a 5-star hotel near the beach. I say, be my guest and enjoy your day. And the guy sees and he says, good morning, sir. Thank you, sir. Blah, blah, blah. Once you running out of your cash, and he say, okay, you spent $10,000 with us. Okay, I will give you 1 day extension without paying. But if you want to stay 1 more week, he kicks your behind and say, get the hell out of here. Because your money is over.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't do all good. Nobody does good and only good in life. Nobody, including popes, and take my word.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. We all did something wrong as a child somewhere. Number one, that is the fact. Nobody did all bad. Even a murderer did something good, or to his children or somebody. That is the fact. You agree with me?
Yeah, totally, totally.
Nobody is good, nobody is bad. Everybody has mixed qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Some anger, some peace, some happiness, all these things.
And of course,
so our job is, it's like explore, like digging in the soil and trying to get a lot of oil or fuel,
mm-hmm.
You have energy centers in the spinal cord and brain connecting. Those are called chakras. And brain is capable of enlightenment. Why? Because I know as a brain doctor that we have billions of nerve cells, trillions of connections, what you call WWW came like that, from that World Wide Web. Same web we have in the brain. Trillions of connections. That's why you close your eyes, you can fit an elephant in your brain or the whole universe in your brain,
mm-hmm.
because of that. And you have that capability. But, like, for example, you have to have certain amount of heat to heat something, or you need certain pressure to match the lights, the matchstick, light the matchstick.
Mm-hmm.
You need certain pressure. Same way, brain, yeah, we all have that. Only thing is you have to nurture it. And you have to invoke that. You have to open those centers. How do you do? With practice, with the pranayama, with your breathing exercises, right? With
mm-hmm.
some mantra. Mantra, how does it do? It focuses. It brings you back. Oh, your mind is in Hawaii. A mantra says, no, let us do this. The more you do, the longer you do, like let us say you did 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. One day, your brain says, hell with those thoughts. Okay, I will stay with you with the mantra and your breathing. Then you get the maximum benefit.
Yeah. So be persistent.
Making sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So
great.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. It was lovely having a conversation with you. We touched on some wonderful topics. The human nature, how vulnerable we are as human beings, and what we can bring into our own life in terms of the breath, mantra, spirituality.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And like I said, I never stick to my subject. I know I wrote the book on mantras, but my belief is that if your listeners, if they gain something, take home something from this and change their lifestyle, that's all matters to me, rather than, just tell you about just the mantras. It's not, it should be overall. That's what I did with the other guy too. He has 40 questions. He said, but I want to complete all these questions with you because I need answers. I did, but we did like 2 hours, 10 minutes. So it goes, it's like ad lib, I just keep on going, but there is no scripts.
It's nice to have a flow of consciousness. Your book, Doctor, is it available? What's the title of it? How can people get it?
It's not even published yet. It's called 108 Mantras for Happiness, like peace, harmony, happiness. But you know that 108, you also touched about the beads in Christianity. I just want to throw one thing about that 108. Why 108? Because scientifically, not spiritually, not belief and all that. If you look at from Earth, sun, if you look at the moon from Earth, they both look same size to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They look same size.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
the distance between the Earth and moon, Earth and sun is 108 times to the diameter of the respective planets or stars, whatever. So that is the reason why 108 is so important. But the ancient seers thought of that 10,000 years ago without Hubble telescope. That's why 108 is so important. And the other thing is, like, we have 12 months and 9 signs, zodiac signs. I mean, 12 zodiac signs, and you have 9 planets. 12 times 9 is 108. Plus, if you add 1 plus 0 plus 8 is 9, correct?
Mm-hmm.
9 is divine, because anything you multiply with 9, like for example, 9 times 9 is 81. 8 plus 1 is 9. So anything you do, it ends up with 9. On the other hand,
Yes.
any other number, including 8, they don't add up to.
That's amazing.
9.
Yeah.
So there is some little bit scientific thing to it.
Wow. That's
But
amazing.
it's nice talking to you, Patrick, and thanks for allowing me to talk to you. And I appreciate your time. And thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, Doctor. Thank you.